Mindfulness in context. The silver bullet, or just the latest way to frame being a good manager. My name's Dean Wiseman. I'm a director in a company called FQM, and I'm Scottish. So my slide pack is quite word heavy. It's kind of like subtitles, so you guys get what I'm saying. But hopefully, there's been plenty of famous Scots out there to lead the way. Depending on your generation, 007, Mrs. Doubtfire, and Shrek. Hey, donkey. Okay, Mindfulness Business Conference. 35 minutes, 28 now. I am not speaking to the disciples. I am not speaking to the people who are mindful gurus. I am not a mindful expert. I'm bringing some of my experience from other industries into this story. I'm talking to the curious. I haven't got answers. I hope to leave you with a good set of questions. It's the business piece I'm going to look at here. It's the piece about getting it into the organizations. Many, many years ago, I trained as an auditor. Big part of auditing was the question, show me. Going to client, we do blah, blah, blah. Great, show me. Show me you doing that. That's kind of stuck with me. Anything I do and anything I design, anything I implement, I always give myself that challenge. Can I show that? And if I can't show it, if I can talk around it, if I can blab, no, I need to be able to show it. So I'm going to ask some of these questions. It's going to be very much show me. 27 years with an oil and gas operator, which I won't name, I'm on camera. So left in 2008, citing divergent values, enough said. I worked mainly in operations, commissioning, decommissioning, risk assessment, control of work. Kind of got into training, staff development, competence management, latterly integrity management, did some awkward projects like shift systems. Try doing that with your staff, very precious to them all. They don't like you touching it. So very, very awkward things to do. I generally did get the awkward tasks to do. Yeah. One benefit from working with a large company is you get to move around a lot. So I was in 14 different roles by the time I left. When I left, some of the guys at my leaving do, I joined the company with, and they were still in the same role, wired completely differently. I couldn't do the same role for 27 years. So that gave me quite a broad experience, but a very narrow, a very local experience. I wasn't getting out and seeing much of the world. I was in one plant, I was in one company, but with exposure to a lot of different topics. I then went out to a standards organization. So the oil and gas industry, high-risk industry, highly regulated. There's a lot of standard setting goes on, and I worked in the oil industry training organization, OPITO, and I was the approvals manager for competence. So the work I did in competence in the oil company, I then went out into the UK and Europe, and I audited companies on what are you doing with competence. We'll come back to competence later. I was the approvals manager, service operators, oil companies, service companies, training providers, and we were looking at training and, again, competence management. Quite a natural transition from what I had been doing. But this time I was getting out into the world and seeing a lot more. Yeah? This, hopefully, I'm not boring you. This is kind of describes the journey that I've been on that brings me here today. Yeah? So, what was missing then? The service companies. I'd never worked in a service company, so I chose one. Made some connections, got a job there as the health and safety manager, HSE manager, we call them in the UK. Clients were operators, other service companies. We were also a training provider. I looked after health, safety, and environment performance within the service company, but also started getting into behaviours. Something I'd been studying in my oil and gas career for 10, 15 years by that point. So I've always been interested in it. Then the obvious. So oil and gas, still a big focus for us. Feeling it right now. The barrel price is still quite low. Nobody's spending. Getting into nuclear, been in marine, engineering and construction, public sector, third sector, doing some work with some charities as well. So that's the kind of client base. Primarily a health, safety, quality, environment management system and software provider. We also do training, but this is my bit here, human factors and organizational behaviors. Many of the incidents I became involved in and studied, researched during my operator career took it beyond just the human factors and started looking more about organizational behaviors, which I think is a very relevant point to this conference. And then me. I'm a husband and a dad. I like my books. I like hill walking. I have pets, a dog and 2 cats. I'm a musician. I do a bit of fundraising, but mostly I'm a master's student, behavioral psychology. That's the one that eats into all the rest right now. So going quite well. So business. Let's look at business. What is mindfulness? We've had a number of definitions today, different approach. I do a kind of I used to be a control room operator, so I always watch trends. I always store data. I'm hearing a general, I mean, if you guys feel differently, say so. I'm feeling a general consensus within most of the people I hear mention it. It's stress busting, yeah, for mostly senior managers. Seems to be quite heavily focused in that area, yeah. So what is mindfulness? What do you need? Everybody's here for a reason. Some people here are representing organizations. So what brought you here? What have you come to find out? What is it you're looking for? And what will you do with it once you get it? So these are the kind of main things we'll touch on, and then some maybe takeaways to say when you're answering these questions. Some things to think about, where I've seen things work well and I've seen things fall on their face. I'm going to make an analogy across now into competence management. So mindfulness, we've heard it mentioned a few times by a few speakers, is quite a buzzword at the moment. Yeah, it's hot, yeah? It's sexy. Back many years ago, that happened. Piper Alpha. Anybody familiar? Show of hands. No, nobody remember that. Nobody heard of that. It was big news in our industry. It's one of those events where if you're in our industry, you know where you were that day. I remember where I was standing. I was standing next to the operations panel in the control room at Sullenville Terminal when we heard that had happened. The next day, we didn't hear it that night. 167 people killed. Lord Cullen was appointed to head up the inquiry, and what they produced from the inquiry was called the Cullen Report. And they made 104 recommendations, all of which were adopted. Big spin on that. I would challenge that. These days, I'm old enough now to be quite cynical about some of that, and I question whether they were all adopted. They were all, at the time, claimed to be adopted. Competence management was one of the big findings. You will do competence management. Thou shalt. So everybody wanted it. No one understood it. Nobody really understood what it meant. We came down heavily on our own staff and on contractors. People very quickly came to realize that you could go to a meeting on competence management, and if you hadn't prepared well, I love some of the things we've seen here today about what people do in meetings. In our industry, you're lucky if they turn up. Really lucky if they've done anything to prepare before the meeting, and you're in wildest dreams that they'll do anything after the meeting. Yeah? People could come into a meeting if they were ill-prepared or didn't want to be put on the spot and could ask what do we mean by competence management? There's the conversation gone for another hour. That's the meeting gone. Lost. just by asking that. I could see that was a devious act. That was deliberate. That was a sabotage act. And it was generally seen to be, competence management's good. Things will be better, but be excellent. Think of a car. How's your new car? It's good. It's better than the last one. It's excellent, in fact. It's good. That tells me something about your new car. What is a car? It's good. It's better. It's excellent. Tells me nothing. I don't know what a car is yet. You haven't told me anything. This is how it was perceived. This is how it was described. People could talk about it in meetings at a very high level. It was ethically, morally the right thing to say. But describe that to me. How are we getting on with the accent, by the way? Everybody okay? Yeah? Seeing a lot of good thought. Good, good. I worked in the federal team doing it across the board. Being an oil company, we went out to all the other oil companies and said, so what are you guys doing? Not. We're going to reinvent the wheel. Don't care what you're doing. We're going to do our own thing. Absolute disaster. Poorly conceived, poorly designed, poorly put together, poorly implemented, and it still doesn't work in that company. I went to a friend's funeral a few years ago, and I met some of the guys I used to work with, and I said, is that working yet? And he said, no. And it fell on its face again recently, and we've had to restart, et cetera, et cetera. So not a great approach to the management of competence. When I went into the Apito role, and I went and saw other companies across the industry, I saw a lot of numbers game. Turned it into ticking boxes. Great. We've done that. We've ticked boxes. The chasing, the management of data, competence profiles for technicians that were inches thick if you printed them. And the system became king. So you do it to satisfy the needs of the system. You've completely forgot why you're doing it. There was fantastic examples of people doing something like this without understanding what the hell it was they were doing. So, human factors. I've moved on since competence. It's behind me now. Human factors, cited in just about every major incident in the past 40 years, and going back some. Before that, Bhopal, Challenger, Texas City, Deepwater Horizon. If any particular company feels aggrieved there, sorry, those were chosen at random. I really did not look to pin blame on anyone. And now human factors. Everyone wants it. Very few understand it. I've seen it in risk assessments. I've seen it in management briefs. Our Boston Square that we were talking about earlier on, urgent versus important, it always lands in the upper right quadrant. It is both urgent and important. Move into that upper right quadrant and split a line through it. On the lower side, you have the urgent and important, but a bridesmaid, never a bride. In the upper corner, the bride never gets there. I've worked with companies where we've been right up to the edge of implementing, plug was pulled. We're going to do something else instead. This may come across in mindfulness as well. There's a lot of taste for this, human factors, in industry. Very little appetite. It's a rich caviar. You want to taste it, don't want a plateful. But it's still seen in terms of, it's still described in those terms. This is human factors. Yeah, we need some of that. I've seen it in risk assessments where, have you considered human factors? Tick. Yes, we have. What's the auditor say? Show me. One company said, no, we can't do that. We can't keep doing that. We can't get away with that. Because human factors considers fatigue, it considers shift work, it considers situational awareness, and it lists off a list of elements of human factors. What did they do? 10 tick boxes. Have you considered human factors? Fatigue, shift systems. So instead of one tick box, they now have 10. Where have you moved with that? You've not done anything. And I'm still standing there saying, show me. Show me what you did there. Don't see it. So I'm citing those two because of the similarity in terms of something new coming along. People all want it, but perhaps don't quite understand it. I've worked in both those fields, frustrating as hell. Is mindfulness a competence? So let's fast forward here. We won't debate what is a competence. We'll say it. Competence is the skillful application of knowledge. You have knowledge, you have skill, you have competence. Someone in the graduate engineer, just out of university, high in knowledge, low in skill, doesn't have the practical skills to apply the knowledge, is not on the curve. Old Joe, the operator, knows exactly what to do. He's out there and high in skill. Joe, what's going on inside this piece of plant? Not really sure. Then he's not on the curve. Yeah? So skillful application of knowledge, a useful description of competence. I think mindfulness is more than that. So let's look at a good old Venn diagram. We have our knowledge and we have our skill. So where they overlap, we have competence, yeah? Everybody happy with that? The Covey fans among you might notice this is stolen from its diagram of habit, altered slightly. We need desire, yeah? And then we need to know how to manipulate each of these. We need to know how to influence this. So what's the input to knowledge? Anybody? T, training. That's how you build people's knowledge. You train them, you educate them. Some cultures see that as competence. Knowledge, training, qualification, competent. I would disagree. The input to skill, coaching. Often we've seen something happen, wasn't the desired outcome, and the individual was sent back on the training course at great cost, at great disruption to your operation. And you say to later, you say, did the training course help you? He says, well, I knew what to do, I just didn't know how to do it. 15 minutes with a good coach would have saved you a fortune. Input to desire. Well done. I was presenting this to a group of young engineers. One of them said, management. Not what I was looking for, but a bloody good answer. Yeah, you have to motivate your people. So I see mindfulness as having the knowledge of what to do, the skill to do it, but also the need to do it. Yeah, it's something in there. And the more input you give to each of the inputs, the being a Venn diagram, the circles come together. That's a great place to be. I've never seen it, but that's a great place to be. I want to talk about Alan. So this is some of my personal experience with mindfulness. Alan was a chap I worked with 25 years ago. He was one of the managers at the time. Really, really great guy. And Alan was able to exhibit all these. I've met people since that exhibit some of these. I've never met anyone since that has all of them. He was a fantastic guy, Alan. He was very well respected by us. And we called him a good manager. So we've got this word mindfulness now that we're talking about, and it's very much what these characteristics are. But back then, we didn't have that term. We just called Alan a good manager. And could we not say that this should be part of any management program? If it currently isn't, why isn't it? Okay, so that's not Alan. And damn, our first presenter this morning, he put up a slide of this guy. This guy is, and I need to get this right, because his name is Mathieu Ricard. He was a French genetic scientist who walked away from Parisian intellectual society 40 years ago and went to India to become a monk. The picture you saw was from a newspaper article where they wired up his brain for neuroimaging, and they were able to demonstrate that he had an abnormally large capacity for joy, yeah, through meditation. So I just liked his smile because he reminded me of Alan, very much what Alan looked like. Poor Alan's passed away many years ago now. We don't have him, but yeah. So mindfulness, a good manager. Yeah. Do we need to create a new approach, a new language, some new terminology, novel approaches to training good managers? Yeah. It's a question. My second exposure to mindfulness was down to a spinal injury. This is called the Wallace implant, W-A-L-L-I-S. If you want to look it up online, Google's other search engines are available. I have 2 of these in my lower back. After many, many years of a lot of pain, I was walking on 2 walking sticks. The length of this room would have made me sweat. Not a great place to be. You know anybody with lower back injuries? Mention it. Yeah, so we got taught pain management techniques. Meditation was a big one. So the present moment awareness, the whole body scan, the whole body awareness. A lot of what we've already heard today about the breathing techniques and everything, did a lot of that. Yoga, Pilates, Tai Chi, went and tried all these different things. I do probably a hybrid that would make any expert cringe if they saw me doing it. It's kind of it's what works for me. I don't meditate. I can meditate, it doesn't really rest well with me, so I don't do it. I'm glad to hear this morning many of the presenters said it's okay. It's okay not to do it. You're forgiven. Thank you. Yeah. We were taught other things, pacing, yoga and Pilates, and music. And I was also glad to hear one of the other presenters talk about if you find somewhere to lose yourself, go and lose yourself there. So I sit and plunk on the guitar. Not very good at it, never played in public. It's for my own entertainment. I don't really, be careful phrasing that. I used to say I just sit and play with myself. Not go there. Yeah, the guitar. And then I went on a cruise to Hawaii and bought a ukulele. Any musician should get one. Nobody can take themselves seriously with a ukulele. But they're great fun. They're very therapeutic, sitting, plunk away, and just... There's this kind of theory on muscle memory. They say if you smile, it will improve your mood. Yeah, I've seen sometimes sitting down with the guitar, I do not feel like playing. I feel like shit, I'm angry about something. But the act of playing kind of breaks that down. So it's a therapy that works for me. These are my experiences with mindfulness. Yeah. So I'm not here to slag mindfulness. I wouldn't get out of the building alive. I'm not here to knock mindfulness. There's nothing wrong with mindfulness, but it's more about the question about in business and what you're going to do with. So takeaway number 1. So here's just things for you to be thinking about. And if you're looking to do this within your organization, understand what mindfulness is. Seek first, Covey again, seek first to understand. I'm not a big Covey fan, but some of what he did was really... Understand what mindfulness is. And if one of your answers is, I came here to find out, good. Or a speaker said, you're not going to learn anything about mindfulness by coming to a conference. I would challenge that. Kahneman speaks about enriching the vocabulary. The first thing to do is become involved in it, create a vocabulary that allows you to then have a dialogue. Being here, yeah, you're speaking to people, you're getting some ideas. I don't actually see that as a bad thing. But your acid test. So I've written down 5, I think, so far, definitions I've heard said, and they're not the same, you'll notice, if you've been taking notes as well. The acid test. So you're going to sit down at the start of this and you're going to do a strategy, because if you don't, you're mental. You really need to think this through and say, what are we going to do with this? So in your strategy, put down your definition. And your definition should stand alone without further explanation. If your definition then requires a 5-minute explanation, it's not a definition. Yeah? Learn that painfully through the competence thing. It was one of the few things I achieved in that oil company was to get them to accept globally the term competence is the skillful application of knowledge. My claim to fame. Yeah? So get that definition nailed. Be clear on your understanding. If you don't already know it, keep asking. So What's missing from your organization? Is there anything missing from your organization? What are the risks to you and your business? Does this represent a risk? I saw a really cheesy, the ISO 9001 quality standard now talks about negative risk and positive risk, and a positive risk is an opportunity. I nearly balked it. That was terrible. But a bit wordsmithy, but risks. Are you looking at your organization in terms of risk? What are the potential benefits? We're about to hear some about a presentation about mindfulness in healthcare. So it's not just the potential benefits for you, it could be your client base. But kind of importantly, how did you come to this conclusion? So this is about analysis. You can never, ever overstate the value of careful analysis. Anybody has any relatives, friends involved in craft activities as employment, carpentry, joinery. There's an old joiner's saying, old carpenter's saying, measure twice, cut once. Yeah. Be very careful with your analysis. If you go in with vague and you set your project, your implementation up vaguely, guess what you'll get at the other end? Something pretty vague. Yeah? Big part of this is also about who did you ask. So when you're doing this analysis, who do you speak to in your organization? So I'm going to break, just for simplicity's sake, I'm going to break your organizations down to pioneers, settlers, and cavemen. Yeah? Cave means complain about virtually everything. Yeah? Don't knock them. They're very, very useful. If you want a true barometer on your organization, don't be speaking to the pioneers. Don't be speaking to the people that are going to tell you the things they think you want to hear. Yeah? So we talk about high reliability organizations. Notice there are no companies in the oil and gas industry that are cited as HROs. None. One of the things about HROs is about being sensitive to weak signals. Yeah, we went out to do a staff survey with some of our guys about something, and we got a whole bunch of answers, not what we were expecting. And it was, wow, what's going on here? And it turned out there was something else bugging them, and they were responding emotionally to whatever it was that was bugging them, giving us an answer that I had to stop the people involved and say, no, don't record that answer. That answer's nonsense. That's not even about that. It was about fatigue. And they were going on about shift allowance. So they were pissed off about the shift allowance, and they gave a very skewed answer on fatigue. And we thought, wow, we've got a fatigue issue. No, we haven't. They're pissed off about shift allowance. Be sensitive to the weak signals. Watch what you're hearing. Be alert to the meaning. Listen to the words, but hear the meaning. Yeah? So what did you ask and how did you ask it? Janet John 101 Human Factors, how you approach this. And be very careful, you can skew the question. You can skew the answer with the question. Basic stuff, and I'm sorry if I'm teaching Granny to suck eggs here, but be very careful with this stuff. I've seen many of these surveys done, and I thought, that's a loaded question. You're only going to get one set of answers. Who designed that? The consultant we brought in to do the survey. Ding, there you go. There's your answer right there. So takeaway number 2, understand your needs. Acid test is your elevator pitch. I'm a non-stakeholder in your organization. If you can't explain your needs to me in 30 words or less, 30 words or less, then you haven't figured it out yet. Yeah? Be very clear on your needs. Who's this aimed at? Leaders. Let them lead. There's a novel concept. Does it stop there? What's next? So what are you going to do with it once you've got it? What does good look like? Did you achieve an improvement? Yes, but not the way we thought. I quite like that. I quite like when you set out to do something, to achieve one thing and something else came out of it, and you go, wow, didn't see that. Spoken to a couple of people here today that have done that. Nothing wrong with that. That's good. But what does good look like? How are you going to deal with the naysayers? Think these things through prior to implementation. When you come up against that obstacle, and that's the first time you think about it, too late. What do you measure and how? So we've spoken about measurements. I've been interested in some of the questions around what did you measure, and some of the answers have been, oh, we had some arbitrary figures around blah, blah, blah. Thought it might be arbitrary. So how will you make it sticky? What's the shelf life of initiatives? I've worked on initiatives that didn't even pass implementation. Didn't even get that far. They were a great idea at the time. By the time you did it, too late. And will this only last until the next CEO? Very, very relevant question. I've seen new broom, sweeps clean, get rid of all his stuff. This is my initiative. And your mindfulness program is sitting there. So get it in at the right level and change the culture, the way we do things around here. There's a number of definitions of that. So takeaway 3 is make sure this has the right level of support from the outset. I raised this question at a presentation similar to this for the Chartered Institute of Ergonomics and Human Factors. I said, how many people in here are from consultancies? 80%. So 20% of you guys are from the operators. How many from the operators are in senior operational roles or senior financial responsibility roles? One hand. In a room of 125, 150 people, one hand went up. So if you're the HR guy that's been sent here to go back and report to the boss, he needs to be here. So is your CEO directly involved? Will it appear on your culture statement? And when it does, are you able to say, show me? Here's what we say we do with mindfulness. Great, show me. Show me how you do that. Where are the empirical measures? So in summary, be clear on your solution, be clear on your needs. And finally, and I really am sorry if this is glib, but your return will be proportionate to your investment. That's what my experience has shown me. Thank you for your time. You have 2 options. You have some questions if you want, or it's coffee time.